Okay. Hi, Frank. How are you?
Excellent, Douglas.
Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So, we're going to be talking about a book you wrote called A Promise Made, a Promise Kept. Is this your first published book?
No, it's actually my second.
Okay. What did you publish before?
I published the tail end of A Promise Made, a Promise Kept as an independent book. It was the sale process going to Bermuda
Ah,
and the
okay.
fits and starts I encountered to fulfill that obligation of promise to my wife.
Well, let's kind of work a little bit in reverse. So, basically, the story is about your dealing with the loss of your wife who died of breast cancer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry for your loss. I know it's very hard on anybody who loses their spouse. What made you decide to write a book about it, though? Because not everybody does that.
Actually, I wrote it as a exercise in filling out my journal. Both Judith and I started a journal when she was diagnosed in 2000. After she passed away, my journaling became very intense and I continued. But what I found was I started to fill in the blanks and I wrote the story, but it was so emotionally charged. It wasn't something I would have wanted to publish. So an old friend guided me into saying, by saying, do the end of the book. It's more uplifting. And that's the tale of the journey to fulfill a promise to sail to Bermuda for breast cancer awareness.
Okay. How old was she when she passed away?
57.
Oh, not old at all. Okay.
No,
All right. And that was in
2004.
2004. Okay, so she's been gone for 18 years. Do you think that writing the book was cathartic for you?
Yes, it was. And it was cathartic at the initial phases in the early part of 2005 and 2006. But I found in the process of fulfilling the promise to her that every time I picked up a pen, I jumped back down into the rabbit hole of despair. And that was very difficult. Over time, the amount of time I spent in the rabbit hole was less. Uh, so I was able to overcome the emotional disquiet of my loss and provide an avenue of personal acceptance and forgiveness for myself. That took a long time.
Forgiveness for yourself for what?
Well, you feel guilty. As a husband, you feel guilty for not fulfilling or not doing something that may have changed the outcome. So you feel guilt. It's a normal process of grieving, and it's something that I think every husband goes through at some point in time during the process.
I understand the guilt. I think, though, that the guilt sort of supersedes the rational mind in the sense that you're not going to be able to do anything about cancer. All you can do is follow your doctor's leads and do the treatments and whatever they suggest you do, right? I mean, it's a little bit
That's
out of your hands.
Yes, it is. However, growing up in the 50s and 60s, I was exposed to a very strong patriarchal family environment. So, as the head of the household, you're always expected to have the answers, to be stoic, to be firm, be guiding, and none of that worked.
My father died of cancer in the early 80s, and just from then to now, the treatments and the technology has advanced so much that I have to believe that had we have had today's technology back when he had cancer, that he might still be around. Although he would be over 90 years old at this point. So, maybe not. Maybe he would have just died of old age, but at least he would have lived longer. Okay. So, again, I'm kind of working in reverse, but you were a chiropractor? Is that was your career?
Yes.
Okay, so you were working as a chiropractor at the time that your wife was diagnosed?
No, I wasn't. I had left practice many years prior to that from an unavoidable injury that took me out of the practice of my field. And we were doing other things at the time. So we were living in Virginia, and I had learned to sculpt, and I was doing that and just doing odd jobs and things, working about, being involved with life.
Tell us a little about the sailing to Bermuda. Was that, again, like a cathartic exercise for you after your wife died?
Yeah, so it was. You have to remember, sailing to Bermuda was fulfilling a promise. One of, when someone is aware that they're passing, they have a list of things they would like to have happen or to have done. And we wanted to give some, even though the outcome was what it was, we wanted to try to give something back to the Massey Cancer Center who treated her. And that was to try and improve awareness of breast cancer by raising funds for that avenue. And we both loved sailing, so that was a given. And though Judith wasn't a very strong swimmer, she appreciated the fact that I was always gazing off out into the expanse of the ocean, and she was more comfortable having a clear eye on land and being close to shore. So, but she understood my passion for being out there. And to sail to Bermuda fulfilled not only her wishes, but also challenged me in respect of her dignity and strength.
You sailed alone?
I sailed alone from Rhode Island to Virginia, and then I made my first cross attempt in 2006 and was thoroughly handed a beating by Mother Nature, to the point where there was a tremendous amount of damage to my boat, and I feel as though the Coast Guard should have found me dead, dangling off the side of the boat, floating around. But I survived. I made it back to port, and a year later, a very dear friend of mine reminded me of my promise, and we sailed together from Virginia to Bermuda. But the deal was, I gave him the option. You can pick a direction, Virginia to Bermuda or Bermuda to Virginia, your choice, but not both ways. So he chose Virginia to Bermuda, and then I sailed back solo.
How long does it take generally to sail from Virginia to Bermuda on a good day?
Well, it took just about 6 days.
Okay, that's not too bad. How far is that?
From a sailing perspective, my return trip was about 846 miles. It was, because remember, you're not a powerboat. You're not going from point A to point B in a straight line. You're more or less at the mercy of the direction of the wind, so you have to play with that. But I believe it's pretty close to over 640, 650 miles away.
Okay, so when you're sailing, you do have to sort of zigzag to get yourself there. Yeah, all right. I want to hit on one of your talking points on your bio, and then we got to kind of wind this down. It's talking point number 3. It says, I lived in 2 worlds. Explain what you mean by that.
When we're growing up, we are a product of our imprinting, our childhood, our social environment, education, family, friends. And that's one part of our life. The other one was my complicated depression from the loss. So I was stuck between one foot in my rabbit hole and the other one confused because of my previous life experiences. It's part of the things that you find out over time as you begin to use transformational techniques to realize that there are triggers that are deeper than what's present. And those, I had a lot of old triggers. And the fact that Judith passed was the most present and upfront one. And I was trying to find balance there.
What do you do now, aside from writing the book?
Well, I continue to write. I do my sculpting on occasion. Writing has been the most prevalent focus at this point. I developed some situations with rheumatoid that take away my strength ability to hold my power tools. So my time spent in sculpting is shorter because I need control, I need strength. And in the meantime, I work as a parts driver for a large auto parts store.
Do you
So I'm
have
retired, and have to make ends meet.
do you have plans to write another book, or is there another one in the works?
There is another one in the works, and it's based on my knowledge as a chiropractic physician and my understanding about the impact of negative and positive vocabulary on in person's self-esteem and their feelings of worth. So that is coming out around February, March, and it's a stepping stone from this particular book. I kind of laid out the format and the platform in A Promise Made, A Promise Kept. And in the next book, has a working title of The Psychology of Healing, which could possibly change, most likely will. But it's more of my understanding of neurology and my chiropractic education to explain how negativity impacts the chemistry of the body and eventually gets put into memory within the brain. So if you can change the negativity of the vocabulary you're using, which has a detrimental effect, and it can actually cause people to be sick. If you use positive language, positive words like I can, I will, I deserve, rather than I can't, I won't, I don't like my hair. Those are negative ego type words, and they impact the body's chemistry, and it gets coded. It gets coded and stored in a process of the synapse, which is part of the nervous system and the neuron. And that's where memories are stored. And when you are triggered or you experience an external stimuli, that's what gets brought to the surface. So our primal basis of our chemistry, our genetics of fight or flight, that's what we are experiencing. But if we use the positive words, it diminishes the impact. It's one of the major difficulties with people with PTSD or autism or just simple depression, because they are not able to recognize the difference and of the impact of the words they're using to describe their ill health.
We have to wind this down, Frank. We are run out of time. Thank you so much for coming on. The book is called A Promise Made, A Promise Kept. The author is Frank DiMaio. The book is out now and available?
Yes, it is. It's in
Okay.
Kindle and also paperback on Amazon.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story, and best of luck with all of your endeavors.
Thank you very much, Douglas. It was a pleasure to be here.